British Columbia's sea-to-sky corridor. From the outskirts of the city of Vancouver to the snow-capped peaks of Whistler and beyond. A haven for ultimate athletes.
Whitewater kayaking, bungee jumping, heli skiing.
A legacy of rich natural resources.
Some of the earliest towns in British Columbia are there because of mining.
And a transportation infrastructure laying the groundwork for Canada as we know it.
If it weren't for the railway, it's debatable whether British Columbia would have joined Canada or not.
Now, we reveal the coastlines like never before, unlocking the secrets of our maritime past, present, and future. Canada over the edge. Heading northwest along British Columbia's lower mainland coast, the Vancouver skyline is stunning. The city is set on the Burrard Peninsula. It is 40 kilometers long, nearly surrounded by the waters of Burrard Inlet, the Fraser River, and Georges Strait. The geography of the city is unique, nestled between the mountains and the sea. It is one of the world's most beautiful cities. The region surrounding Vancouver is the gateway to a scenic coastal journey. Across open water, West Vancouver's Point Atkinson Lighthouse marks the entrance to Burrard Inlet, a major marine corridor for cargo ships from around the world. The century-old light station here is designated a National Historic Site. Beyond Point Atkinson, Passage Island is a 32-acre rocky outcropping. It marks the entrance to another waterway, Howe Sound. Howe Sound is a vast body of water extending 45 kilometers inland. It is North America's southernmost fjord and marks the geographical division between BC's Lower Mainland and the Sunshine Coast. The region was inhabited by the Squamish and Seashelt First Nations thousands of years ago. it was explored by the Spanish in 1791. Then by England's Captain George Vancouver a year later. Today, it is sparsely populated. The walls of the fjord rise high, towering rock faces jutting from the sea. On the water, Howe Sound features a jagged and rocky shoreline. The sheltered waters are a favorite for recreational boaters, weaving in and out of the spectacular islands dotting the Sound. The coastline of British Columbia's Howe Sound is a natural gem. Heading north, towns and communities slowly disappear, replaced by long stretches of undeveloped coastline. This is one of British Columbia's top attractions, the Sea-to-Sky Highway. It lines the eastern banks of Howe Sound, tracing the contours of this sheltered inlet. The roadway is widely known as one of the world's most scenic road trips. Beginning at the U.S. border, the Sea-to-Sky Highway stretches more than 400 kilometers. The highway blazes an incredible path through 5 distinct biogeoclimatic zones. Sea-to-Sky also traces 2 historic routes, the Pemberton Trail and the Gold Rush Heritage Trail. These historic routes helped connect the coastal Salish people to the inland Fraser Canyon and prospectors to the Caribou goldfields in the 1850s. That legacy of natural resources also carried into the 20th century at the town of Britannia Beach. Copper was discovered here a century ago, determining the future for the region.
Britannia Mine is located on the beautiful coast of Howe Sound, which is 50 kilometers north of Vancouver, British Columbia. It is surrounded by stunning, beautiful mountains, and I think the combination of ocean and mountains just makes Britannia Beach the reason why people wanted to live here 70 years, 100 years ago, and still today.
The Britannia Mine Museum is visible for kilometers, a symbol of this town and the region.
Some of the earliest towns in British Columbia are there because of mining. And so in the context of Canada, mining in British Columbia are some of the first earliest mines in Canada and some of the greatest mines. Britannia Beach is one of the earliest mines in BC. It was started in 1904, and over its 70 years of operation, it's more than 60,000 people lived and worked here. We had something like 30 different nationalities that worked here in Britannia.
Prior to 1956, Britannia Beach was only accessible by boat, cut off from the outside world. It was a vibrant community with libraries, tennis courts, swimming pools, and featured regular dances and social activities, an escape for workers who spent much of their life underground.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen, all for free. No subscription required.
It's recognized today as a National Historic Site because over that period of time, people did build province and country. They went to work because there was real purpose behind what they were doing. They were getting minerals, and those minerals were wanted and needed around the world to build many of the bridges and the infrastructures we now take for granted.
The museum features 15 historic buildings, machinery, equipment, and exhibits, above and below ground, all key to the process of extracting minerals from this mountainside.
Copper is usually found in a mineral, so it needs to be crushed and the minerals need to be extracted from the rock. So here at Britannia, it was an open pit mine in the early days, and then it had what's called an underground mining, so it had miles and kilometers of tunnels. When you go underground, it is a small tunnel. It's not a huge, big tunnel for modern equipment, but the smaller equipment that would have been used in 1930s style mining. We do have a train that runs through the tunnel. Here at the museum, of course, people can go back and see maybe what it would have been like to be a miner in the 1930s when hard rock mining was happening here. We're in the 1912 haulage tunnel, and it is indeed 100 years old. This tunnel was not used for mining, but for the shuttling back and forth of the equipment that was needed to feed mill number 1. The tunnel has a real sense of sound because you can hear the water dripping. It's always damp in the tunnel. And so you can well imagine a miner going to work, because this would have been exactly like mining tunnels would be elsewhere in Britannia. There's over 200 kilometers of mining tunnels in Britannia, so going on a train, going to work was part of their job every day.
The first ore was shipped from Britannia in 1904. The mine grew rapidly, and by 1929, Britannia was the largest copper producer in the British Empire.
When you get your ore, of course, then you have to figure out how you crush it and then extract the minerals, separate the minerals from the rock. And the big mill building, that's what that building was all about. So you have the mining part, but you also have the milling here. There are larger buildings in the world today, but I can tell you that anytime you go into this building now, people feel the energy of this building and its 100-year history.
The mill stands 20 stories high, hugging the massive cliff face. The top 6 stories of the cathedral-like structure were devoted to crushing mined rock into fine powder. As the rock descended, water, air, and chemicals were added to the powder in a process known as froth flotation. In this process, the valuable ore was separated from the rest of the rock. On the ground floor, workers would begin the process of recovering the valuable minerals.
At that point, on these big platforms were large tanks, and it allowed through chemicals to trick the minerals to float to the top so they could be skimmed off. That's what was sent to the smelter. The rest was waste rock. So this building was about rocking and rolling with crushing of rock, and it was dusty and noisy. There is a saying that says, if you can't grow it, you must mine it. And it is an absolutely true statement if you take some time to think about it. So modern mining gives us all the things we want in our society. So for a person today, we believe we need to understand mining. Mining in British Columbia remains important to British Columbians and Canadians because we're part of a global world where we do get from the ground the minerals we need for our everyday life. Mining matters to people, and it's a job for us to say it's not just something dirty that I don't need to care about. You need to care about it, and our job here at the Britannia Mining Museum is to help you with that awareness in its past, in its present, and what does it mean to us in the future.
Beyond the boundaries of Britannia Beach, the rocks and cliff faces rise high at Stawamus Chief Provincial Park. The park is built around massive 700-meter-high granite cliffs, named in honor of the First Nations village Stawamus. The park summit, known as the Chief, is internationally known for climbing. It is considered by many to be the second largest monolith, or single piece of granite, in the world. Beyond Stawamus Chief Provincial Park, the northern limits of incredible Howe Sound lie far below. This is the town of Squamish. It is named after the First Nations peoples that inhabited this region for thousands of years. The modern community traces its roots to the early 20th century, when Squamish became the first southern terminus for the Pacific Great Eastern Railway. It is part of a rail legacy that helped lay the foundations for Canada as we know it. That legacy is preserved a century later at the West Coast Railway Association Heritage Park.
We're on the Pacific coast of Canada at a town called Stawamus, British Columbia. The West Coast Railway Association was founded in 1961. It was the era when steam was ending and diesel was coming into its own. We had a lot of pieces of rolling stock, but we weren't able to preserve them properly. We weren't able to exhibit them. We weren't able to interpret them. We really did need a home. We acquired this piece of property in Stawamus in 1990, and we've been building ever since.
The park is home to dozens of restored and historic railcars, dating back as early as 1890. It is one of the only museums of its kind in Canada.
This is Railway Post Office car 3704. It ran the route between Calgary and Vancouver for many years, right into the 1970s. It's how the mail came to town in the early days of Canada, right up until recent times. You can see here the various bags of mail into which the postal workers would sort the mail. As they approached a station town or a community, you'll see that the bags are all identified with the station names, and they would open the door, toss the bag out, that would be the mail in, and grab the bag you saw off the post outside and bring it in and continue sorting. While the car was moving down the tracks, there'd be up to 5 posties aboard here working, or railway post office clerks working to sort the mail, and they would sort the letters, they would sort the parcels, and make sure that everybody got their mail on time in the various towns along the line. It's a key part of the story on how communication started in Canada.
Alongside these historic railcars, the park's newest piece of construction is a huge modern roundhouse.
It was interesting building a roundhouse because there hadn't been one built in Canada in decades. Included with the project was the installation of a turntable, which is required to turn the locomotive so that you can access the tracks into the crescent-shaped building. And it was opened in 2011 as our newest exhibit hall.
The roundhouse houses some of the West Coast Railway Association's most valuable railcars, including their very first acquisition, Canadian Pacific Business Car number 16, named the British Columbia.
And this is where it all began for us. Wood cars like this, built way back in 1890, had been outlawed to operate on Canadian railways. Most of them were destroyed. The refinishing of all of this wonderful mahogany was quite a task in and of itself. When the car was taken apart, we discovered there were over 100,000 pieces of wood in the car. Some of them very, very tiny, others some of the major pieces you see. Each one had to be stripped right down to the wood, refinished and revarnished. The car was then reassembled and 12 coats of varnish were put on to create the finish you see today.
Another gem of the collection is a massive steam locomotive, the Royal Hudson.
The Royal Hudson really is the jewel of our collection. It's a very significant piece in the history of Canada. It's very rare in that it still operates. There's only two, maybe three mainline steam engines left in Canada that can operate. It was restored over a long period of time, and it demonstrates clearly an era that just isn't available for people to see. It would typically pull 10 to 15 car passenger trains or 40 and 50 car freight trains single-handedly. It's equivalent basically to probably 2 of the diesels of the same era together in terms of its pulling power. A magnificent sight when it's steaming along the main line. Today, our 12-acre Heritage Park site is a year-round, open everyday tourist attraction where we tell the story, and our collection has grown to 95 locomotives and cars. 15 of them operate, the other 80 are for exhibit purposes. Well, what we're building here is a completely interpretive community that would have been typical of those established in Western Canada because the railway came. Unlike other parts of the world, the railway actually created our communities in many cases out here, as opposed to just connecting existing communities in other parts of the world. If it weren't for the railway, it's debatable whether British Columbia would have joined Canada or not. So if you think about the Pacific coast, the ocean, of course, is north-south. And all of the trade routes were north-south. San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Victoria were the trade routes up and down the coast. As the British were looking at what to do with this territory on the west coast, they had to decide how, in fact, it might be connected to Canada. And after the Confederation of Canada was created, the idea of building a railway from the east to the west to connect the country was floated. That was enough to get British Columbia interested, and the rest is history.
Just beyond Squamish, the serene waters of Howe Sound are left behind, and the landscape rises. Adorned with flowing rivers and incredible mountains, the region is a crossroads of culture and adventure. Squamish and the surrounding region is known as the outdoor recreation capital of Canada. From traditional activities to new outdoor adventures that take advantage of these unique natural surroundings.
Well, anybody that's looking for extreme activity has many choices, from riverboarding to whitewater kayaking to bungee jumping to heli skiing to really anything that they want to do. BC is a great playground to do it.
Outdoor enthusiast Sky McLeod has explored BC's coastal waters for years. Now, he is promoting a sport he believes is new and unique to the region.
Well, I riverboard, and for a lot of people, they don't know what it is, but it's riding a boogie board or a bodyboard down whitewater, down the rivers. Well, when I was living abroad for a lot of years, I saw a few guys doing it. I was totally blown away, and I've stuck with it ever since. Brought it back to Vancouver, and I've been trying to introduce it here. Like a kayaker goes down the whitewater, I go down on my chest, on my stomach, but with a boogie board, and surf the waves and ride the whitewater. Well, there are small, important details that you have to know to control the board, to turn, how to duck dive with the board. A lot of similarities when you're bodyboarding waves in the ocean. You have to know how to use your fins. You have to be able to turn on a dime immediately. You have to be able to move your whole lower body sometimes this split second. It's hard for me to tell actually how fast I'm going in the river, but I'm going as fast as the river, and she's really moving. You can just look at the river, see how fast it's going, and then you know how fast I'm going. Where we run, it's all canyons surrounded by sheer cliff walls. So in some places it's very steep and very narrow, and there are some flat water places where you can just float along. And when you're looking up at the canyon walls, everything is very quiet. You see eagles flying down, sometimes eating salmon on the rock. You see salmon jumping sometimes. It's just totally tranquil. So when people see me jumping in, their first reaction is, what's he doing? But when they see me riding the whitewater, and then when I'm out and I'm coming back to do another run, they talk to me and ask me what's going on. I tell them, and they're very intrigued, and a lot of them want to try it, so that's a great thing.
Coastal British Columbia is a natural wonder, highlighted by the steep coast mountains. This is Garibaldi Provincial Park, located just inland, east of the Sea to Sky Highway. The park lies just 70 kilometers north of the city of Vancouver, but resembles another world. The region was designated a park in 1927, named in honor of the 19th century Italian patriot, Giuseppe Garibaldi. It measures nearly 2,000 square kilometers of rugged beauty. It is a diverse landscape with forests of towering Douglas fir, red cedar, and western hemlock. The landscape is a mix of rugged mountains, valleys, glacier-fed lakes and rivers, and incredible scenic vistas. The park is a haven for outdoor enthusiasts. There are more than 90 kilometers of hiking trails here, considered to be among the most beautiful anywhere in the world. At the heart of Garibaldi Provincial Park is Mount Garibaldi. Rising more than 2,600 meters, it is one of the most spectacular and recognizable peaks on Canada's west coast. Mount Garibaldi is also a volcano. Known as a stratovolcano, it is cone-shaped, built up over years by layers of hardened lava. Mount Garibaldi first erupted 250,000 years ago, and today is considered potentially active. It is a volcano formed onto a glacier, making Mount Garibaldi the only volcano of its kind in North America and the largest in southwestern British Columbia. It also features incredible ice fields. Measuring 35 square kilometers, they are maintained by more than 5 meters of snowfall each year. To the north, Garibaldi Lake radiates an incredible beauty. Fed by glaciers to the east and the south, the lake's rich turquoise color comes from silt-sized particles of rock throughout the lake, the result of glacial erosion. To the north, the stunning peak of Black Tusk Mountain is a landmark here. At more than 2,300 meters, the peak is visible from all directions. In the Squamish language, Black Tusk is known as Landing Place of the Thunderbird, in homage to the legendary Thunderbird that looked down and watched over the people. The shape and color of Black Tusk are said to be the result of the Thunderbird's lightning. Today, it is a daring hike for those up to the challenge, featuring breathtaking, surreal views. British Columbia's sea-to-sky corridor traces an incredible ascent. From jagged rocks and cliffs to the summits of Whistler and Blackcomb Mountains. Both peaks rise more than 2,000 meters, just beyond the boundaries of Garibaldi Provincial Park. Whistler and Blackcomb are known internationally as one of the world's top ski destinations. They are separate mountains, but connected by a gondola. 4.4 kilometers of eerie high-level adventure. Far below, Whistler Village is home to just under 10,000 people, but visited by more than 2 million each year. And it's not just for skiing. In the off-season, this region is quickly becoming known as one of the world's top mountain biking destinations.
Whistler's just an hour and a half north of Vancouver, and I think we're really known as one of the world's most popular ski resorts. But in the summer, Whistler really is a special place as well. We wrap up skiing down here in the valley, and we start before the snow melts. We start actually peeling the snow off the trails with some of our machines to open up the mountain biking. Our mountain biking starts here on the Victoria Day long weekend, so third weekend in May. And at the same time, we're actually still skiing at that time through well into June. So that transition is basically skiing fades out and mountain biking fades in. Mountain biking's been happening here for quite a while. We've been running the lift access mountain bike park here since 1999, so we're into our 14th year now. And just the whole mountain biking scene here continues to develop and continues to grow.
The lift system that carries skiers during much of the year takes bikers and their bikes to the extraordinary summit. From here, they begin their descent, following kilometers of rugged, barren trails.
Really, when you think about free ride mountain biking, it actually really started, here on the West Coast, really based on the North Shore of Vancouver, and eventually found its way migrating up towards where we are here in Whistler. And really in the whole corridor, all the way from Squamish all the way up to Pemberton, probably have some of the most popular and probably the greatest density of really good mountain biking anywhere in the world. There's a whole range of skill levels. Our beginner trails are, we kind of keep them between 6 and 8% grade, so they're really, really flat. In fact, flatter than you could probably even move on skis. Whereas, for our steeper stuff, you're probably getting up into the 30+% range. And again, you got that whole range that really allows us to provide experiences for the whole gamut, from somebody that's just trying it for the first time right up to some of the best riders in the world. So we're just over 5,000 feet of vertical, but because our base area is so low, our top elevation compared to a lot of mountain resorts is actually quite low, which is a good thing because you're not really affected by altitude. So the top of our mountain's just over 7,000 feet, about 2,300 meters. And from there, we've just opened up a new trail, a new single-track trail called Top of the World. And it starts above the tree line, so all in alpine spectacular views, spectacular trail, and eventually winds its way down, you know, almost 10 kilometers down to the valley, 5,000 feet below. Some of our more famous trails are machine-built trails that have, you know, berms and, you know, lots of jumps on them and that sort of thing. And just that feeling of just kind of letting the bike go and kind of flowing with the terrain and, you know, hitting the jumps, catching some air is one of those good feelings for sure. So we'll get people from, you know, obviously from the rest of Canada, from all over the U.S., tons of people from Europe, particularly UK, quite a few from Germany. But then we're getting pockets of people really from every continent on the globe. So it's pretty exciting to see all the people from around the world that come here to gather and have some fun on the mountain.
From the outskirts of the world-famous coastal city of Vancouver, to Canada's adventure capital of Squamish and surrounding region, and the soaring peaks and volcanic glaciers of Garibaldi Provincial Park. British Columbia's sea-to-sky corridor is an awe-inspiring coastal journey from the ground or the air. It is a coastline steeped in culture and history, where sheltered ocean inlets meet soaring mountains to form unbelievable scenery, here on the edge of Canada.